Greetings, chess players. My name is Chris Torres. This is Daily Chess Musings. And today we have another viewer request position of the week to look at. Today's position was sent to me by a chess student of mine in Fremont, or from Fremont, California, I should say. And I had other positions sent to me as well. I chose this one because it's of interest. The first thing you should notice about this position is black is ahead by 1 point in material, which comes exactly from the fact that black has 2 rooks versus white's queen. 2 rooks are 10 points together. A queen, of course, is 9. So the question becomes, it is white to move, of course, because they are actually in check. The question becomes, what's better, the queen or the 2 rooks? Generally in these kind of positions, if the queen would be better if black's rooks are not coordinated easily. And right now, black's rooks are already coordinated. They're already working together. They're in the F file. Or the queen would be better also if there's pawn targets on both sides of the board, which there are here. There are pawns on both sides of the board, so the queen has some forking opportunities. However, these pawns are evenly distributed. So it's not as big of an advantage if the pawn structure is very asymmetrical. This queen would love asymmetrical pawn structure with pawns on both sides of the board. We have evenly distributed pawns. Now, if you're the side with the rook in these kind of positions, first of all, you've got a monster bishop. This is very helpful. Having an excellent bishop, if you're on the side with the rooks, helps negate the queen's extra mobility. You want to keep your rooks coordinated, i.e. in the same file, and then in the same rank, so you can overpower the queen on one of the weak pawns. The queen can only maybe defend the pawn once, the rooks can attack it twice, you can maybe win a pawn and trade 2 rooks for a queen. These are common strategies for the black side, which is why players with really good endgame technique would prefer, and experience would prefer black in this position. I would prefer black. Having said all this, the player who submitted this to me is a scholastic player, a young chess player, and just from experience, I see young chess players winning with the queen, winning with the side of the queen, because they're good at tactics. They're good at tactics, and the side with the 2 rooks takes technique and strategy to pull off, and it's real easy to miss 1 fork. 1 fork if you miss by black, and this queen can fork a king and a piece and win material, and then white has an easy path to victory. All right, so these are just my first impressions. Now let's really kind of take a look at what's happening in this exact position right now. Bishop attacking the king. Check. So we don't want to block with our queen. I mean, this is obvious. So it means we could move more toward the center, which is a good idea. Also, we have these moves in the A file. A2 might give us a path to activity around our pawns. A1 I don't see much purpose to, because it's moving the king into a corner, and you want an active king in an endgame. But we'll look at it anyways. So we are in check. Let's go with my natural move first. My natural move for a position like this would be to move my king to c1. This would be most natural. trying to get an active king in the endgame. And unfortunately, though, black can scoot this pawn forward, and this could create problems for us right away. So it could be that king c1 is not the best, even though it looks most natural when you calculate out just a little bit. Let's see. So if black plays g4, I'm highly concerned about, the rooks invading, and we want to keep things defended. We have to be concerned about the rooks invading, especially given the bishop's control of some key squares here. We don't want to get checkmated. So knight e1 is what I would suggest here. And then I think the most natural move for black would be to just come down and pin this knight to the king, right? This is very, very dangerous stuff. With this bishop positioned like this and this rook on the back rank, it's very dangerous for white right off the bat. But is this sustainable? Because white has neat little moves like knight g3, right? Which attacks this rook right off the bat. But black can return the favor and threaten the queen. And then we need to be careful. But see this knight on e1. The reason it's good on e1. One of the other reason that I was more leaning toward that is we are controlling c2 with it, which is important, because now our queen is being asked to move, and we don't want this check right away. Now, if our queen's being asked to move, what about just taking this pawn? Well, if queen takes pawn, then okay, gets a pawn. It's threatening the bishop, obviously. But I say, instead of I mean, you could try and move the bishop around out here, but instead of doing that, what about rook e8, threatening this knight, threatening checkmate? That's a pretty big threat. So certainly white does not want to be checkmated, so maybe king d1. And now, see, you threaten checkmate, now you can bring the bishop around. And this type of stuff becomes very dangerous for white. Knight d3, you're guarding e1, but you're threatening f2. And then, of course, bishop e3 check. You have to play king c1 here, so not much choice. And then, is there a purpose to this check right now? Not too much, because this knight's controlling the checkmate square. So I think you take a pawn, so we're back to even material. Of course, this gives white a chance to do something, right? Right now, they are not forced. I'm really starting to like black's position in this. This is very troubling. Queen f4 seems reasonable because you're giving yourself extra guard to block it with a knight against the check. Plus you're pinning this. Plus if this rook takes on h2, then this diagonal looks like a very valuable one for the queen to be on. You have potential forks and things. So rather than take on h2, rook g1 is a nice check. It's a very, very nice check. Of course, the idea with the queen f4 was to block this nice check with knight f1. Right now, black's bishop is so good. So dangerous, taking away key squares and creating possibilities for back rank mates, and giving options like this, you know, a little extra pizzazz, little extra power. So you're threatening a check there, and then some other ways of coordinating things. Also, you know, possibly doubling up the rooks. I don't think you want to wait around. If you're white, I don't think you want to wait around for bad things to happen. Knight b4. It's guarding c2, and it's threatening c6. So both aspects of this knight are important, and now this knight is just a wonderful, wonderful piece for white. A wonderfully important piece. And then, as I said, you know, here's this battery on the 7th rank. I know it's the 2nd, but we always talk in terms of the 7th rank, rooks in the 7th rank, in terms of our own perspective. It goes back to when chess was descriptive. So this would be like rook to, this would be, you know, like rook to king's knight 7, so 7th rank. And now this knight is in the wrong place. It needs to be defending here. So this move was very good. Very, very good, because now the rook's threatening to take g2. So you have to return your knight. This is a useful guard. It's the only thing stopping black from just winning this game outright. If rook takes here, the game should be easily won by black, barring catastrophe. So we could go with a removal of the guard kind of strategy, and then this is a real problem. If you move the guard, then it's not guarding g2. You could defend it perhaps, but see, the queen's not going to be as useful here, right? Not nearly. See, look at this. Yeah, and then yeah, I mean yeah, black's going to take, and black should, will easily win this game. Easily win this game. All right, so that line looked troubling, but remember the queen. Let me rewind a little bit through my moves. It's a nice thing about chess.com is we can do this. So my curiosity is way back. The attack really started to pick up. Wait. Okay. Let's see here. Which variation was I looking at? king c1, then g4, then knight went to e1. And then we were looking at rook f1, remember, pinning the knight to the king. And then white said that pin's not sustainable, knight g3, threatening the rook, right? Then the rook goes to attack the queen. And this is where we took a pawn, and it ended up not being so good, because you take this pawn and this rook scoots over and threatens this knight, right? So that is not a wise capture. So let's try one other thing real fast here. I don't want to go on too long. But these positions are a little fun to do some spot analysis. This is what I'm going to be doing tomorrow at the Cal Chess grade level championship, I'm sure. Taking my time going through games with young players. So queen e3. For the moment, key things are defended. There's no check. And the knight is guarded, and it is guarding g2. Everything is defended. h2 being the exception, but there's no way to target it. So you can kind of guess by the way that I'm phrasing everything's defended that I'm actually, again, preferring black's position. It feels like black's the one playing for a win, and psychologically I'm trying to set up a defendable fortress for white. All right, so we might think about bringing this bishop around. And then out this way, perhaps, is black. I think that's another useful approach. Again, why wait? Why wait? If you're white, let's play actively. Queen's threatening now this pawn, so they can scoot this forward. And white doesn't want it to scoot forward one more square, attack the knight, so... I guess black could attack this now, giving white something that they should have an interest in defending. However, if the black rook does take this pawn, the rooks will be uncoordinated for a moment, and that could give some tactics to white. For example, maybe queen d2, rook takes h4, queen d6, you're pinning the knight, you're threatening the rook, right? Now, the rook's got to move. White's knights are nowhere near black's king. If white's knights could be closer range in this attack, it could be a different story. Now that these are non-coordinated rooks, and this is pinned, and the queen is, in an open board situation, but she needs help, and the help is too far away right now. Knight c2, trying to get the help in. Now, from there you've got three good squares for your knight. So black might do well just to. I know the bishop was a monster, but do you really need the monster bishop anymore to win this game? Probably not, because you have a passed pawn. That should be your new hope. no point in leaving this pinned if you're black. And white could, fall back and threaten this a second time. This is a nice little bit of geometry here, defending the knight and threatening this pawn twice. I like the coordination of the queen and the knight. A queen and a knight can coordinate really nicely because the knight fills in the gaps that the queen can't move, right? So a rook and a bishop can move like a queen, basically, right? But a queen and a knight, it's a unique and a lot of good endgame studies that I've encountered show the superiority of say a queen and a knight over rooks and a bishop, because the knight can fill in some gaps. It moves uniquely, and the queen otherwise can move like a rook and a bishop. So it gives white some unique powers. And as we see here, it looks like that passed pawn. Maybe we shouldn't have traded the monster bishop on c2, because it looks like this pawn's going to fall, and then I mean, you can try and avoid it for a little bit with like rook h2, check, king b3, right? Looks like white should be okay here. It looks like white should be okay here. We successfully defended. Black can harass us a little bit. But I don't see this this pawn turning into a queen, and it's just 2 on 2 on the other side, and white has enough pawns to offer enough protection. So my thinking here is this will probably end up being a draw. So that's a good find for white. All right. Let me return then to our starting position. So again, we are in check, and we've looked at a couple options of king c1. Let us look at, the king c1. Naturally, again, just to summarize, feels like the right move because you're moving your king more toward the middle, but unfortunately there's this immediate pawn g4, which gives these rooks immediate potential against the king in the back rank. So I'm starting, and so this is going to be kind of exciting for me because I'm starting to prefer king a2 maybe. Now here, yes, they still could play g4, but I think is black. You could switch diagonals with your bishop and keep the initiative. So check. And then white could, go back and forth perhaps and go for a draw of repetition. But if you're playing for a win as white to try and win, let's say this is a must-win situation for both colors, you move forward. You're pushing forward. And this bishop's in the back rank, taking away some possibilities of rooks behind passed pawns. Plus, why not give it 2 diagonals and interfere with the queen's scope a little bit? So bishop d5 plus, I mean, look, this is just nice. This bishop, again, a monster bishop by black. And again, white's at a disadvantage, especially because their knights are just so far away from the opponent's king. It's going to take a couple moves to get into checking distance. So let's go ahead and start that process. If you're joining, if you're just joining us, I'm looking at a viewer request, position of the week, sent to me from a chess student in Fremont, California. It's a classic queen versus two rooks kind of situation. Generally in these, as I pointed out at the beginning of the show, the two rooks, they're worth 10 points, right? That's why black's up 1 point in material right now. So a strong player would favor the two rooks. However, scholastically, the player with the queen probably scores slightly better because scholastic players make some technique mistakes based on lack of experience in endgames, and they'll uncoordinate their rooks, and there'll be nasty forks and things. Speaking of rooks, I'm going to say if White's king wants to move up, right? If White's king wants to get more active, let's put a rook in this 4th rank as a barrier. Plus, it's an open rank. We hear a lot about open files, but this rook is in an open rank and an open file. Remember, when we're talking about open ranks, open files, they're ones without pawns. Pieces don't count in this terminology because pieces move in and out of files and ranks all the time. Again, White's strategy needs to be to get their close-range attackers, dangerously close to Black's king. And right now, this is dangerously close. Here's a nice fork kind of situation, right? If the knight were to move there, it would be a fork. So if you're black, your king wants to get active too. King b7. Especially with your bishop on this diagonal. So the queen, an active king versus your opponent having a queen on the board, it's a little tricky. But your bishop's giving your king good protection because your bishop's controlling the check diagonal that the queen could use against you. Let's see, White could play g3. Bug the rook a little bit, right? We don't like this rook in the open rank and the open file. And now, I think the natural move for black would be to, usually when my opponent threatens something, say a rook, then I like to turn that around and threaten, say, a queen. Okay, so queen steps out of threat. Rook takes here. Let's remember that these knights have moved a lot closer to the action, to our opponent's king. And in fact, we could throw in, like, say, c4, because this knight's guarding the pawn. Now the pawn moves up against the king. And you gotta be careful here, is black. Why do you have to be careful? I think I pointed out just a moment ago that this bishop is providing safety to the king. So, for example, if this bishop moves in the wrong direction, leaves this diagonal, let's just say the bishop goes to g8. I should be able to win this. Queen e4, king c8. This is the type of stuff that strong players can do almost in our sleep. It's like, all right, come stack against me, fine. And then, yeah. And black is in significant trouble here. Significant meaning they're going to get checkmated. There's not much they can do to stop it. I mean, they could throw in some useless checks, sure. They could try and add a defender for a moment, right? But I mean, we're just going to take, and then this is pinned and double attacked, and they can't add a second defender. So huge mistake. if black leaves that diagonal with their bishop. And this is the type of thing, let me go back to where we were in my notes here. This is the type of thing that could totally happen. This is why a player with the queen would score better in scholastic tournaments. But a player with the black, I think, would score better in adult tournaments, because adults have had more time to gain experience and not give up control of this key diagonal. Instead, you play bishop h1. Now there's no threat from the queen check. There's other threats, and some of them are fairly dangerous. But you have to be on guard as well, because you know that this rook wants to come down here and start doing things, doubling up. Interesting position. Do we continue to attack things? I'm actually kind of leaning at let's keep these rooks from unifying so easily, and go with knight g4 threatening. Now this rook's got to go somewhere, and the choices aren't so easy, because the knight is also guarding f2, right? So now the rooks can no longer coordinate in the f-file. And the bishop that needed to stay on this diagonal is blocking a useful... So, I mean, it looks like rook h3 is what you got to play, but then there's knight f2, right? And then... There's ways you could really mess up here. There's big time ways you could really mess up. For example, if you just tried to go back to h2 to do a repeated position, then boom, right? So there are significant ways that, again, see the side with the queen, you got to be careful, especially in an open board situation like this. Let me go back to, let's see, knight to f2, forking. But you got to look at your checks, captures, and threats here. Let's threaten the queen instead. Instead of trying to run, see, I was getting in the wrong type of thinking there, trying to run with my rook and defend rather than counterattack. Don't get sucked into that. Always look at your checks, captures, and threats. Alright, so queen is under attack. I think you just sidestep. And now this gives you time as black to move your rook out of threat. But unfortunately, here it comes again, right? All right, so we've seen this already. Knight takes bishop. If rook takes knight, then you're, yeah, forked. All right, so interesting evaluation here from the king a2 line. King a2 holds more promise, I would say, for white than king to c1. And let me go back and see if there's another point I wanted to make on king a2 before we. So if king a2, then bishop g8 check, right? King a3 moving up toward the middle. And then bishop d5, very strong diagonal for this bishop. Offering your king protection is what we discovered together there. Knight e to d4. Then rook f4, open file, open rank. And then knight e5, moving knights closer to the opponent's king, threatening the big time fork. King b7, there's the protection. And then, see, this is where things get a little scary for black. g3. So I'm going to say, instead of the rook f2 ideas, that black should strongly consider rook e4, threatening this knight right off the bat. And then knight g4. Would be terrible. What are you thinking, Chris? That's a terrible idea. Obviously, rook just takes. Sometimes, let me I'm just going to delete that move. That was silly. That was silly. Yeah. This is a little tricky again. I'm doing some fast calculating. And what about knight to d3, right? All right, so the knight comes to d3, and things are very, very... These knights together, they have a lot of interesting squares, right? When you start looking at how they're controlling so many squares. And also, beyond that, they offer a lot of good protection value. They're both centralized, so we don't have this knights on the rim, back to why they're having so many squares. And so it becomes a little, let me try and erase some of these. I drew a little too much. I don't like it when I draw so much. Get a little carried away with my arrows. Becomes a little cumbersome for black to figure out how to get a better position. Maybe come down here and threaten rook a1 check, right? So I'm trying to find a better option for black after the king a2, king a3. And I think I may be getting there. So this is a significant threat down here. Significant. Because the bishop is also, guarding a2. So I say b3. And now, if need be, your king could even come up here. It's a momentary pin. But then again, as black, why even allow them to consider that? And then white realizes, nope. And in fact, I need to guard against the rook check with my king itself. And then black could play rook h1, going after this pawn, I suppose. But, I mean, to what end? I mean, then they just give up the file to the queen, I guess. And to me, it looks like, if this is the best black can hope for in the king a2 scenarios, then white seems just fine. White seems just fine. So, in fact, I might slightly prefer white here. because the rooks are not coordinated, and it's very difficult to get them re-coordinated because this knight is controlling e1, so you can't stack in the back rank. This bishop can potentially defend this rook, and this is an important idea. But yeah, I think I might actually prefer white in the king a2, at least with what I've uncovered here. And that goes against my initial impression. That's okay. And now finally, let us go back. And there was, again, we looked at king c1, and I think we showed it to be okay for white, but it gives black, some dangerous stuff. Then I think we looked at king a2, and now I've come to the belief that king a2 is superior to king c1, and in fact maybe even gives white an edge in the position. If black plays for the win still, it seems like white's able to turn the tables nicely. Their knights have time to get to better locations, and the queen is very active and dangerous. And now let's look at the final option, which is king a1. All right, so there's no other check, but you're moving your king to the corner. King doesn't want to be in a corner for an endgame. Not at all. So again, bishop e4 seems like it's controlling this key diagonal again, so that black's king can potentially move up. Plus, this bishop is just awesome where it is, right? Then we attack it. All right, so it moves back. This is a little dangerous because there's the threat of the back rank mate, because the bishop's controlling a2 and the pawn's on b2. So maybe we step out of that back rank problem. But in the time, you did this and this, blacks improved their bishop. And now can move their king a little bit closer. And it's safe because their bishop, again, see, you got to be careful moving your king, activating your king in an endgame where your opponent has the queen. But with the bishop controlling the main check diagonal, you're okay. Queen gets very active herself. Rook says, I like the open rank, open file. Queen says, all right, I must move, but I get my own open file. Black's rook says, really? I don't think we're going to keep you on this open file. Queen says, all right, well, what about this open file? And, I mean, if you're black, you could just say, how about I set up a discovered, threat here to win your queen, right? And then the queen could move back, and the rook could move back, right? Seems like one of those draws by repetition. But let me, instead of the initial draw by repetition, I mean, the rook could go here instead. If black does not want to, draw by repetition, if they want the draw, it's there. And maybe knight e2 again, threatening this rook. And then rook can go to e4. It seems like I'm liking black better in this line. But I'm not surprised. I mean, white went to a1, which is moving the king into the corner for an endgame. Not a wise decision, even if it does avoid other checks. So I'm not surprised by this. Now they can coordinate their rooks with a big threat here. And then the knight goes back and threatens the rook again. And maybe we move in circles, or black can throw this kind of trap, right? The rook's not defended, but it's defended by the threat of the discovered attack. So if that's like a persistent threat for you, then, you know, perhaps king c1. But then again, I mean, way back when, white could have just played king c1 straight out, right? It's a little different because the rooks are coordinating themselves in the E file instead of the F file, though. So it is, you know, it is a difference. No, you can't re-coordinate now. You'd lose that. Silly Chris. In fact, yeah, I think you just gotta go back over here. And then we aren't making any progress. And now the white king is actually closer to the center. I still don't like my queen being in the same file as my opponent's rook, so I might just do this. But then again, they might just play, what, rook e8, right? And it seems like we're, you know, in this variation, we're bouncing around a lot, and it'll end up being a draw. So, to summarize, and, you know, I think the best hope for white, well, to start with the basic summary of the position, black's rooks are already coordinated, and black's ahead by one point in material because 5 plus 5 is 10, and the queen's 9. If white plays king c1, then black gets some tricky stuff with the immediate g4, and white is best to return back here. It just offers the best long-term protection, and I think I showed at the beginning of this video how a draw could be achieved that way. If white is playing for a win, they are going to try and activate their king going around rather than this way, simply because of this threat, right? And then the best way to do this, I think, was something like, here's this strong bishop d5, again controlling the ability for white's queen to get on that diagonal with some dangerous checks a little later. But it gives white a chance to bring the knights closer. Open file, open rank, barrier for the king in the 4th rank. Gives another knight. You want to bring your knights closer as white, threatening the big fork. And then there was this king b7, and then here, bug that rook again. And this gives. We looked at rook f2, and it actually ends up being, you know, slightly problematic for black, if you recall. After rook f2, queen e3, and then if rook takes h2, it's a little problematic. And so right here, what was I thinking again? Let's see. Let me use the arrow key. Oh yeah, rook e4. Yeah, instead of rook f2. Rook e4, threatening the knight. And then what did I... Oh yeah. Then the knight comes back. Guarding important squares. These knights are just beautiful. They're in the center of the board, an open board, controlling so many key squares pointing forward that black has to worry about defending, and so many important squares to defend in the backward direction. yeah, they can try and come down here, but you have this nice b3 move, which stops a lot of those tactics. Then a5 stops white's king from being more problematic. And then I'm not sure if that's the right idea for black there. I mean, because it just gives white the file, but I don't see really anything super good, you know, for black here. White's knights are perfectly placed for both offense and defense. And the queen, if you make one mistake, the queen's going to be very troubling for you. So I like the king a2 as white. I would give that the Chris Torrey's thumbs up. Hey, thanks for the wonderful viewer submitted position. And I look forward to, and again, this was from a student of mine in Fremont, California. I look forward to looking at some more interesting viewer requests, position of the week going forward. It's a lot of work to like calculate through. I stumbled, made a couple of mistakes, but the main things, the main points of the position is if you're the one with the 2 rooks, keep them coordinated, and then try and overpower on weak points. If you're the side with the queen, you want, you know, here the pawns are evenly dispersed, but at least there's pawns on both sides that you could potentially target, keep your queen active. And as far as the knights go, black's bishop was very important to the rooks because it covers diagonals, whereas the rook does not. And white's knights starting so far away, but I showed you in this king a2 ideas that you can get your knights to a good centralized location where they can both defend and be a threat. And so I think white was actually better than I first thought when I first looked at this position. I was saying, you know, a scholastic player would win with the queen more often, but a more experienced player, chess master, would prefer the rooks. Having looked at it a lot, I think you know, you might just prefer the side with the queen. But it's just me. Let me know if you have a different opinion on all of this. Thanks again, and I will see you again next week. Remember, my name is Chris Torres. This is Daily Chess Musings. You can join our free club on chess.com, the Daily Chess Musings Chess Club. You can also you know, find us on YouTube. This was broadcast live on Twitch. Find us on YouTube. We have a Daily Chess Musings page on Facebook. Go to dailychessmusings.com and enjoy thousands and thousands of free chess lessons and other fun things. And you'll be glad you did. And don't be afraid to send me a position if you think you have something worthy of interest being looked at. You do that by sending it to dailychessmusings@gmail.com. dailychessmusings@gmail.com. Keep sending me your games and positions, and I will see you guys next week. So long.